Welcome to the Porn Reboot podcast, where you get practical tips to gaining control over your porn or sex addiction. We help ambitious men end their out-of-control sexual behavior with pornography, sex, and masturbation so that you can maximize your life, perform at your potential, and remain in control in the driver's seat, which is where you have to be in order to gain or maintain the success you want in life. I'm your host, J.K. Emezi, certified sex and porn addiction recovery coach. Welcome to the episode.
Today, we are going to talk about wealth and the stages of your reboot. This is the series on success and the different stages of your reboot, where I draw connections between the different stages of your reboot and success. This is in order to help you not only identify the stage of the reboot that you're in, but also help you find out where you might be stuck when it comes to generating success in your life. So we're going to jump right into it when it comes to wealth. First of all, in the early stage of your reboot, one of the things I've noticed is that a lot of my clients worry about debt and they worry about now what I would call cash flow. Back in the day when I was a brokey, I just literally just called it, I just needed money. I had no idea where money was going to come from, and I had very limited places to look for money. So when I was in my early 20s, it was like, what's the story I'm going to tell my mom or dad to get money from them? Where am I going to, little things, am I going to be able to donate plasma this week to get $20 to do some groceries from the dollar store? What am I going to be able to do? And then as I started making more money, it was I might need to take an advance from the company on my commission and just pay them back next week because I don't have enough. I might have to borrow money from a friend. There were all kinds of crazy things that I would do. And it doesn't matter where you're at. Even if you're doing quote unquote well financially, it doesn't change the fact that despite your net worth, despite how much you make, if you're in the early stage of your reboot, it is likely that emotionally you are going to be concerned about debts and you are going to be highly concerned about where next month's cash flow is going to come from. And you might be going no, that is absolute bullshit, JK. I don't think you have to be in your early reboots to worry about that. I don't think I'm in my early reboot and I'm already worrying about that. Well, hang in there and see what happens when we get to maintenance. Again, there's a little bit of generalizing going on, but I've collected a lot of data over the past 12 years, and I've worked to put this together by actually looking through my notes, experiences I've had with clients, and also my personal growth experience as well. When I talk about the early stage in this series, the middle stage, the late stage, the maintenance, and how it relates to whatever that topic might be, I am talking about the common denominator. It is seen most commonly across all men who are rebooting, regardless of what level that they're at. When it comes to the middle stage of your reboot and developing and generating wealth, this is the stage where I notice a lot of men trying to cut expenses, trying to reduce commitments, and again, it comes down to they want to usually secure their retirement ahead of time, or in some cases, secure some big payouts. So again, we're talking about wealth, and perhaps I should take a moment to define wealth in my own terms. I believe that when you are wealthy in terms of the financial aspect of wealth, you are at a point where working is optional for you. You have generated enough revenue via investments that bring you quote unquote passive income. And by the way, I hate that term passive income because there's actually nothing like passive income. But you are at a stage where the money that is coming in from you not working, from the returns on your investment, is more than enough to take care of your lifestyle. Now, within the financial reboot, we actually have exact multiples for this. I believe that everybody should have a big number, a fuck you number. By fuck you number, it simply means that it's the amount of money that you make where if somebody wants to make you do something, you're like, fuck you. And my standard for that is literally you can also tell the government to go fuck itself. You're like, nah, I don't even have to stay here. I don't have to pay taxes to you. I'll just take my money and my investments, my goodwill, my business, everything. I'll take it somewhere else where they're going to treat me well. I don't want to go too deep into that. So I just want to keep that definition loose out there. I know there are all sorts of people who might feel some kind of way about wealth. I don't feel some kind of way about wealth. So when we talk about your middle, reboot, and wealth, what I've noticed is that a lot of people start trying to shortcut their way to wealth. Hey, if I cut expenses here, if I don't have all these commitments, you know what? I'll be able to conserve what I have right now and save it over the next 20, 30 years. And maybe I'll be wealthy when I'm in my 50s or my 60s or my 70s. You are now freaking out because of your age. You're freaking out because of your lack of emotional control, your lack of foresight, your lack of creativity, the lack of internal resources that are required for you to grow your business. I want to make it clear to you. I don't care where you are in life or where you are in business. When it's time to grow, it is about internal resources, not just external resources. And please, don't fall into the fallacy of thinking, well, JK, there are all these addicts who are running successful businesses. That is a very small percentage of people. And the only reason you know that is because they inevitably fuck up. And that's how you've heard about them most of the time. So again, I want to make it very clear. You have to work on yourself internally. The right type of internal growth will not only make you a better business person, a better steward of the money you're making, a better individual who is going to become wealthy, but when you actually attain that wealth, when you have that responsibility, when you're a leader, you'll be less likely to fuck it up because you're building yourself up with the right values because you're rebooting. There are plenty of men who have reached out to me when they're slipping, when they're relapsing, and they are at a good place in their business. Business-wise, everything is going great, but they are fucking unhappy. I've also had men who've reached out to me after their business was acquired, and now they're sitting around with their dick in their hands, completely unhappy. I'm like, well, bro, what if all the dreams you had? They were like, well, the only thing that was driving me was my business. Now I've sold it and I got money in the bank. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm just jerking off. I'm spending my money on sugar babies and escorts. I don't know what to do. Your life does not have to be like that. But I digress. If you catch yourself doing these things, check your reboot and ask yourself, am I in the middle stage? As I've often said, the middle stage is the longest stage of your reboots. A lot of people, when they don't have accountability, when they are not in the right community, they have a tendency to regress to the early stage of their reboots. And listen to me, in today's economic atmosphere and environment, if you start cutting expenses, if you start reducing your commitments because you're scared, because you want to get out of your business sooner, because you don't want to put things at risk, you're like, no more scaling, none of this. It's time for us to just save money and just be okay. You are putting yourself in a dangerous situation because somebody else is going to show up and steal your market share. They are going to eat you up and they are going to commoditize you. You will become like everybody else. And many of you are working so hard with not much to show for it because you're already commoditized. You look like everybody else. Your resume looks like everybody else. Your experience is like everybody else's. You have not differentiated yourself in any way. In the late stage of your reboot, when it comes to generating wealth, what I've noticed is that a lot of men at this stage have a tendency to start maximizing their earning years. And there's nothing wrong with that. They look at their age and they're like, you know what? I'm going to crank. I am going to really focus on my income first. They don't get distracted. Now, I want to go back to the middle stage for a moment. What I notice a lot of men doing in the middle stage when they're trying to generate wealth is because they're uncertain. They're like, oh my God, how long is this going to take? Am I actually going to make it? Not everybody makes it. I cannot find examples of that around me because you're not in the right community. You're not in the right environment. There is a tendency for you to start going into investments a little early. You have to build up your income first, and it has to be a surplus income. In fact, I'll give you one of the multiples that we have in financial reboots. I believe that your income should be 5 times what you need to live. I'll say it again. Your income should be 5x what you need to live in a year. I'm going to leave it at that. But the first thing you need to do is build up your income. And why do you need that surplus? You need that surplus because if the end goal is wealth, then that surplus is going to be going towards investing. The reason that that multiple might seem high to you is because the value of the money you're going to be investing over the next few years is going to be eroded. It is going to decrease. So you have to set a realistic goal. And a realistic goal, as far as I'm concerned, is 5 times what it takes for you to live right now. And of course, it varies from person to person, but if someone was just getting started out and wanted a direction to head, that is the first thing I would tell you. Now, a lot of men, before they've even gotten to 5 times of what they need to live, they're usually like, oh, it's 0.5 what I need to learn to live. That's how much I'm making. You start pulling back. You start going like, oh, I'm going to invest in Bitcoin. I'm going to invest in stocks. I'm going to partner with someone and invest in real estate here and there. I'm going to do all these little things. My brother, it is so dangerous to do that. A man who is in the late stage realizes one thing. He has to maximize those years where he has the energy, where he has the strength, where he has the skill sets to push himself. Work hard. All through my 20s, I was cranking over 80 hours a week. I didn't care. I was out at 7 in the morning. I was knocking doors. I was checking in with my team. When I came back to college, I was recruiting on weekends. Like literally, I would go to class Monday to Wednesday and I was off Thursday afternoon. I was in K-State. I was in OS. I was recruiting salespeople. I was running trainings. I was running workshops. I was building my organization all across these United States. And I did that all the way till the age of 31 when I exited that business. And I've still been cranking, putting in the hours. Why? Because I have the energy. These are my best earning years. I'm not fucking around. I'm not wasting time. I'm not throwing my life away. You have to do that. You have to maximize those years because that's how you take care of your later years. That's how you build a legacy. For those of you who are into that, those of you who have kids, those of you who have a family, extended family that you want to take care of. And finally, we have maintenance. Now, maintenance is a little bit different. At the maintenance level, men who are building wealth here, what I've noticed, because this is also an area, I'm very transparent about where I'm at. Admittedly, I'm slowly trying to work on this. I'll find myself some months living in this area mentally. And again, I'm not referring to my sexual behavior. I'm referring to what I've seen men who are in this stage who are building wealth doing. But sometimes I'll kind of fall backwards. And that is they are treating every quarter of the year as just a tiny percentage. So these men, they are so calm about business. They are not rocked because they don't have a timeline. You heard my voice when I was talking about late stage of your reboot, like maximizing your earning years. That's because that's where I'm at. I'm just cranking and cranking and cranking and cranking, and I'm aware of my age. But every time I run into some of my mentors, I speak to them, they're so calm. I'm like, how are you so calm? And they're so calm because they're in it all the way. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm in like Porn Reboot. I'm in business. I'm in all these things. But my belief is that because I wasted so much time with my out of control behavior, I still have this belief, maybe it's a limiting belief, that I have to catch up. I feel that I'm constantly behind because I wasted so much time with my out of control behavior. And I want to personally warn you about that. Please don't fall into that trap of feeling that, man, I got to just keep working hard and fast and sacrificing so much because I feel that I have to catch up. I think it's a wonderful thing to have that as a motivation when you wake up to your out of control behavior and you're like, damn, I'm going to catch up. But it is challenging for me to treat each quarter as just a tiny piece of many, many quarters over the next few years. These guys have a very long-term vision. They don't really plan to stop working. They enjoy the work they do. So do I. However, when I ask them about their goals, they're talking 25 years from now, 30 years from now. And that was one of the things that convinced me last year. I actually made the commitment because I was hanging out with men like this. I'm in a mastermind where one of the guys is a billionaire and one is close to that in net worth. They've shown me assets. We've flown out to different places just as a group. I'm so fortunate to be in this group. Like, damn. But I get to observe how these men operate. And it was one of the things that inspired me to actually have a long-term vision, to add 25 to 30 years to the work I was going to do in Porn Reboot. And that was so liberating. The minute I actually made the conscious decision that for the next 25 to 30 years, I'm going to be doing this. I don't know what capacity I'll be doing it in, probably not as a coach, but I would still be involved in this. I would still be pushing this. I would still be spreading the mission and the vision. The way I felt about everything in my life changed. Now, I'm using Porn Reboot as an example. These individuals are doing it with their wealth strategy. Now, I have other businesses. I have investments. Those are part of my wealth strategy, and I applied it to that too. So I started having a very long-term view on my investments and the different assets that I have. And that's what happens in the maintenance stage. Now, one thing I'll say about this as I wrap it up, since we're talking a lot about wealth and success, especially in the last few episodes, is I firmly believe that a lot of a man's self-image is attached to his financial status. It doesn't matter that you have to build your values, your standards, you have to have integrity, you have to be a good man. All of those things are important as you're ending your behavior. But I have seen time and time again that a lot of men's stress comes from trying to make a living, and not enough men are being empowered to generate wealth or generate some form of financial freedom. I strongly believe that it is my fiduciary responsibility as a Reboot coach who worked through these issues on himself and got to that level of financial freedom. I truly believe that it's my responsibility to show men how to do that, to show men how to invest, to show men how to manage their finances, to show men how to build up these assets, and to show men how to do it at whatever stage of life they are at. I already started doing this with some private clients a few years ago, and their growth has eclipsed everything and everyone around them. They are doing phenomenally. In fact, some of them are doing so well that they're making close to 7 figures a year. That's close to $1 million a year, barely working. It's not like they're not working. They do some consulting on the side. But these guys are just in their early 30s now, and some of them are in their late 20s. I know many of you are listening to this and you're just like, nah, I'm just here to learn how to quit pornography. But I'm going to put out another podcast because I sent out an email a few weeks ago where I talked about the fact that I had hidden so much of the other things going on in my life because I was so attached to keeping the main thing the main thing. I was so attached to this identity I had as the Porn Reboot guy, and that my story was only about pornography, that I had suppressed all the other things I was doing in my life. I talked about how most people didn't even know I was in a relationship for as long as I've been in. I've been in a relationship this year will make it 16 years. But back then, I only shared that I was in a relationship publicly and put my girlfriend's face out there after I'd been in a relationship for 14 years. 14 years with somebody. And even some of my friends and acquaintances did not know. And this person worked with me for 7 years. 7 years, door to door. I can introduce you on some certain levels to certain people that can help you manage things, trademark things, put paperwork together. So many skill sets that I had developed while growing my first organization, which I exited. I just put that side of my life aside. So I made a decision, and this was also due to just my exposure to certain mentors, to start helping men and to truly become a holistic service. So I'll put a separate announcement out regarding that because this episode is about wealth and the stages of your reboot. But just know when you show up to our programs that whenever you're ready for that, I want you to be a financial success. I want you to be a physical success. I want you to be healthy. I want you to have a great sex life. I want you to have the body that you're proud of when you take your clothes off. That's why Optimum You exists. I want you to have a great relationship life with a woman who's loving and caring, who when you wake up next to her, you're like, damn, I am so blessed. Thank you, God, for bringing such a woman into my life. That is what Dating Reboot does. I want you to have that sexual satisfaction if that is your thing. I want you to know that you are worthy of love. And we're going to do that in all areas for you. Because thankfully, I'm in this for the next 25 to 30 years. I appreciate you. I love you. I do believe that that concludes my series on the different stages of your reboot and success. I hope you found it helpful. I'd love to hear back from you. Send me an email. In the subject line, just put podcast and just share your thoughts on it. And gentlemen, if you really find this podcast helpful, I would just be so honored if you would just take a moment and just leave an honest review. Preferably give us 5 stars, yeah? But an honest review to keep a brother encouraged while doing this. Now, you all know me. I'm just going to show up and do it anyway. But once in a while, it's just nice to look down there and go like, oh, wow. Like, it's nice. People actually do give reviews because they're getting value. We get a lot of downloads, but sometimes I feel that men's shame holds them back from like dropping reviews just for the podcast. So here I am humbly asking, if you feel that these have helped you, if you feel that these even remind you of just like, hey, this is a great reminder, this is great motivation, this is a great to help me in my vision of freeing myself from this behavior, you don't need to join our program. You don't even need to have the intention. If it's been helpful, I'd be grateful if you drop a review for us. Thank you so much.
I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Porn Reboot podcast. I'll speak to you later on in the week. If you found this episode helpful, here are 4 ways I can help you with your out-of-control sexual behavior for free. The first way is to grab a free copy of my book, Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men at elevatedrecovery.org, or visit the link in the description below this episode. The second way is, if you're not sure where to start, but you'd like to learn more about my team and I, if you'd like to spend time with like-minded professionals and business owners who are controlling their behavior, then join our free and confidential group, the Porn Reboot Group on Facebook. There's a link to join in the description below this episode. The third way is if you need help right now because you have a burning issue, your behavior with pornography is hurting you mentally or emotionally, you're about to lose your relationship, you want to live up to your potential, be an authentic man, and free yourself from shame, guilt, and underachieving, then click on the link in the description below this episode that says free coaching call. And the fourth way is to leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy this podcast, so that we can reach more men who are struggling in silence and bring back the lessons we learn from coaching them to freedom.